I think I did 24 weeks of marching around middle of the night, no food, 100 pounds of junk hauling around behind you. And that's how they kind of cut the wheat from the chaff and see how you'd respond to situations. Because everybody can be a wonderful leader if everything's going well. And it's a little tougher to be a good leader when things aren't going well, or you're hungry, or you're tired, and that sort of thing.
Welcome to the Mark Faris Experience. Today we have David Weir joining us. He is a seasoned real estate expert. He has 27 years of experience, and he is part of the acclaimed National Chairman's Club with Royal LePage. He's one of the top in the entire nation. And he has a really cool backstory that I want to dive into a little bit, serving in the military for 20 plus years. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mark. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too, David. And you've always been a guy that I've respected a lot through the years, just a real down to earth, just get her done sort of guy. And you've had some wonderful success. Can you welcome to the show here just to start
Yeah,
off?
thank you.
Yeah. So, David, maybe you can share a little bit of your backstory there and maybe take us through the before the real estate agent days, right? And you can maybe give us a little bit of your backstory there, jumping into real estate before you jumped in.
Sure, no problem. So I'm an immigrant, came from Scotland when I was 6. My dad was a coal miner. My mom was a bus conductress. We came to Canada, settled about an hour west of Toronto. And my parents divorced when I was 14. And I've got 2 younger sisters. I joined the Air Force when I was 18, right out of high school, and served for 20 years. And during the first year I was in the military, I met my wife. And next March is 47 years for us.
Wow.
So that's, yeah. So the military's given me lots of
Congratulations.
different things. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
almost 50. That's a big milestone there.
Yeah. Yeah. People wonder how old I was when I got married. I think, wow, 12. But anyway, so the military, I didn't really have the marks of the inclination to go on to university. I got a university degree later in life, as did my wife. But it gave me a lot of other things. So, it teaches you discipline. You move around. You're forced to adapt to different things. You can be put into a leadership role. So at one point, I managed a couple of control towers with 25 people each, 24/7 operation, that sort of thing. So that was fantastic experience, and I actually probably would have never got out of the military, but I was going to probably get promoted and transferred to Winnipeg. And right now I'm an hour east of Toronto in Trenton, Belleville area. And I had no inclination to move to Manitoba. And my son was going into grade 9. So I didn't really want to force him up and out and change his life. And my wife was in the military still. So she did another 5 years after I got out of the military. And that allowed me to transition into real estate.
Wow. Okay, so you had a leadership background in the military. Now, did you serve any time overseas, or was that something that you were pretty much leading and basically getting ready to go to war?
I was an air traffic controller, so there was no position for me overseas. The furthest east I got was Labrador, which was a different experience altogether. It's the best job I ever had in the military. Is we ran a lot of fast air, low level stuff. Europeans would come over and do a lot of low level flying in Labrador. So we had some exciting times with those guys, mixing them in with you know, Twin Otters doing 80 knots on file, and we're ramming fighters right behind them, all coming to the same piece of asphalt. So that was a wonderful job. And I was the mayor of the community council there as a secondary duty. So that was my favorite tour. 3 years in Labrador, I never would have thought that would be my favorite tour in the military. So
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about what basic training looks like, because you see that in the movies, it's like that basic training. And when I was younger, I thought this would just be good overall training just for life to go through that. For the listeners out there, maybe you could share a little bit of what that looks like, maybe when you went through it, and then maybe today if it's changed at all.
I'm sure it's changed a lot, because when I did it in 1977, I started. And I remember all the old timers saying, "Oh man, this basic training you guys are going through, it's a girls' school compared to what we did." Some we still had Korean vets in the military at the time I went in, So it was a learning experience. I did basic officer training and basic recruit training. So altogether, I think I did 24 weeks of, marching around middle of the night, no food, 100 pounds of junk hauling around behind you. And that's how they kind of cut the wheat from the chaff and see how you'd respond to situations. Because everybody can be a wonderful leader if everything's going well. And it's a little tougher to be a good leader when things aren't going well, or you're hungry, or you're tired, and that sort of thing.
Well, David, thank you for your service there. And we're going to jump into the business side of this and that transition. But maybe you could just start off with that the first like few months when you jumped into real estate and getting your business off the ground. How was that early? Was there early struggle? Was it just, did you were instantly successful?
Well, my wife and I bought our first house when we were 18 years old in Nova Scotia, 22,000. We sold it 3 years later for 34,000, and 12 grand, no big deal. But percentage wise, it was like 50% on our money. And of course, that's tax free money still in Canada, your principal residence. So we'd always bought and sold during our 20 years. So when I got out of the military, like I said, at 20 years, my wife did another 5. So that kind of allowed me to transition. And honestly, my whole thought was, at the time, I think I was making $54,000 a year managing the control tower with all these people and stuff going on. And I thought, well, I'm going to get this little pension from the military after 20 years of service. All I really need to make uh, to net the same was $17,000. And I thought, well, I can probably drive a cab and do that. So I was feel pretty comfortable. And my wife still had a real job. So I found it really interesting because we found real estate interesting to start with. But I was so naive, I guess I'll say. I thought, oh, I'm just going to work hard. I'm going to be the number one agent in my office in 2 years. And I wasn't because, when you're brand new, even though you have all this gray hair, the people still are looking for some experience, and there were no teams back then. So even people I knew in the military didn't necessarily want to list their house with me because I was new at that, and that's their most expensive investment, right? So they're a little gun shy about maybe doing that. So it was a learning experience, and like I said, there was no team to join to try and get all that experience to a team leader. You kind of were on your own to sink or swim, and so it was a more difficult than I thought. But now, and actually Wednesday, I'm taking a grade 9 student with me around for the day who wants to be a realtor, and he's in grade 9, and he's a son of a client of mine. And I thought, grade 9, I didn't even know what a realtor was in grade 9. So it's interesting how things have evolved that way.
Well, just going back to, and that's great. You're mentoring now. I think that's wonderful. There's a lot of students out there that are thinking, they think, real estate agent, what an amazing career. And so you actually exposing that actually be a really good show there to
Mm-hmm.
start off, David. Maybe you can start that off for young kids coming around and actually
Yeah,
see
right.
behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
But you mentioned when you first started, it was harder than you thought. What was it that was hard or harder than you expected when you jumped in?
Yeah. Because I just thought if you work hard at anything, you can turn it on, right, and go somewhere. But like I said, it was harder to get people to trust you, not because like these people, a lot of these people knew me, these military personnel who were getting transferred, and I was hoping to list their house, but it was still difficult because you're new. There's no team to back you up. You've got no history. I was 38 years old, so I didn't look like a 19-year-old kid with black hair, right? But even at that, it's still tougher than I thought because the AREA training, Ontario Real Estate Association training that we all have to do in this province, it doesn't really teach you how to make a living
Yeah.
or anything like that. It just teaches you how to not to get sued. It teaches you how to fill out paperwork, but it doesn't really help you out. Because I've had a lot of people come to me over the years, and they say, "Well, I've done my, phase 1, 2, 3 training," and I say, "Well, you know, that's wonderful, but how much money do you have to support the business you want to
Sustain.
grow? And you know, have you got a plan?
Yeah.
To financially how to get from A to B? Because the phase 1, 2, 3 training is not going to give you that."
Yeah, that's right. And that's one thing I think a lot of people, and maybe it works out to their benefit. They realize 3 months in that that,
Yeah.
listen, I'm running out of money and there's urgency
Yeah.
there for them. So maybe it works to their benefit, but that is something to expect. I think starting any new business, getting into real estate or the reality is unless you're successful, unless you do a sale, you're not making any income. And
You
I
know,
think that's very easy to forget during
th-
that time frame.
well, that cash flow thing, it was huge. And I remember, I think I sold 3 or 4 houses, and I was in my little cubicle, all by myself, and I kept getting these checks for $0. The house would close. I get a check so I finally, after 3 or 4 of these $0 checks, I went to the secretary at the front and I said, I think there's something wrong here. Like, I'm not getting any money. She said, "Oh, Dave, that's because you still owe the brokerage money because you've been here
Oh,
all these months." and yeah, and so I thought, "Oh, wow, that's a tough gig."
uh, well, you're paying down your commitments, I guess, is what you were doing
Right.
there, right?
Yeah.
So David, you've scaled up from doing it on your own, and you have your kids now working with you. Maybe you can give us a little bit of what kind of production you do on a yearly basis, and then what does your team look like?
Well, I've gone, like I said, from being by myself, and I think at the most I might have had at one time a team of maybe 14 or 15 people a few years ago. And I remember one month, I think it was May of maybe '08 or something, we did 80 ends in one month. And I remember looking back at all the data and thinking, man, I don't remember some of these people. It was just insane. And I remember the manager saying to me, Dave, 80 ends in a month, 80 ends is a career for some people. Yeah. So, but it was turning into a bit of a haze. And then you get into personalities with different team members and different pros and cons of having certain people on your team. So we kind of scaled back. And of course, the worry was, well, okay, well, the income won't be there or the award won't be there, that sort of thing. So we've transitioned from that to now where there are myself, and everybody on my team does everything. We all buy, we all sell, everything. And so it's myself, my wife's kind of the brains behind the operation, the financial wizard, and all that, and does some marketing pieces. And then my daughter, my son, my daughter-in-law, and then 2 retired military people, one of who I've known for 40 years, and that's our team. That's all we do, and we haven't lost a step because we've been chairman. This will be our 20th year at Chairman's Club, top 1% in Canada. So, weathered the storm. I thought, okay, well, we're going to down tools on some of these um, team members. We'll do less, but really, it hasn't had a big negative effect on our team.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good question to ask yourself is this growth that's happening, is that what I really want? The vision that you have for it. And it's okay. Like sometimes we get in this, we go to these seminars or conferences and everybody's about like growth, growth, growth in numbers, but growth can mean maybe less sales, but maybe more profit, or maybe it's more
Mm-hmm.
of a lifestyle, or maybe it's a service. And in David's example here, it's really good. It's like he honed it down now where it's like it's a well-oiled machine. And David, I'm curious, do you run your business like you did with the military? Like, is there discipline in your approach on a day-to-day basis, and has that worked into the team and how they operate as well with your background in military?
Uh, the military approach works great for me,
Mm.
but not everybody wants that.
Yeah,
Like, and I'm not picking on my kids, but it's just a different generation,
yeah,
right?
that's
So
right.
we don't crack the whip on goals, right? We all have goals, but we don't say, "Oh, you didn't make your goals this month." We don't get into that. My wife even told me a long time ago, you have your kids over for Sunday supper, and I want to edge into some business stuff, and I get the big, you know,
Oh, oh, the
stop that.
glaring eyes. Yeah.
It's family Sunday dinner. Leave the real estate stuff
Oh, I
outside. Yeah, like
I haven't been able to navigate away from that, Dave. When we get together in family, I
yeah,
got
yeah,
3 of my brothers working with me
yeah,
on real estate, and
yeah.
my sister's a real estate broker, and it's always real estate selling or investing. But yes, there needs to be a good mix, otherwise everybody else kind of feels out of the
Out of the
circle.
loop. Exactly right.
Maybe you could share with us some. advice that you have, because you worked with your family for quite some time, and
Hmm.
you have a really great family dynamic. I know that about your background as well. And
Hmm.
how have you been able to navigate a high production business and building and continuing to keep the strong family relationships at the same time going?
Kids have grown up with you. They know what you're like. So it's not as if there are any surprises, right? Oh, dad's on it. Dad wants this, dad wants that, rock and roll. So that helps. My daughter in law, she didn't get that years of pain and suffering, I'll call it. Having said that, though, she's probably the first young person that I met. She was actually a co op student at our office, one of our other offices, right out of high school. And she was the first person of that age that wanted to be a realtor. And I thought, oh my God, really? And then years later, her and my son hooked up, and now we got two beautiful grandchildren and living the dream. So that's all cool. Uh, but it just, I guess, leadership through example, me applying gentle pressure, I'll call it. Hey, how are we making out with that guy? As a matter of fact, we sold a house last week, conditionally sold, uh, most expensive house ever for us. I think it's 227. And my son was with me because we always go. There's always a pair of us. It's me and somebody, daughter, son, daughter-in-law, go on all these appointments. And I kind of slowly step back during the process. I'm still monitoring everything, but I let them go forward. I mean, my daughter's been doing it, I think, 15, 16 years. So anyway, I said to my son, okay, set up all these. It's a rural property, so we need septic inspection, well inspection, and it's a huge property, and it's got two septic systems, two wells, and it's got a pool. So the inspections are going to take a few hours, all in one day. And I said, okay, you got all that set up for Wednesday? He said, yeah. I said, okay, great. So what time are you going to be there? He said, well, Dad, I'm not going to be there. I'm going to that marketing thing for Richard Robbins that you told me that you wanted me to go to.
Yeah.
So now
All
I'm
right.
going. I'm going to spend half
Yeah.
a day at the inspections. I thought, oh man, what a pooch on my part. But now I'm going to take this grade 9 student with me,
Yeah.
so it'll be cool.
Yeah. So it's like divide and conquer, and you
Yeah.
know each other's personalities, right, on a day to day. Now, how has your role changed from you being an individual to being the team leader? You had mentioned there to nudge people and, gently nudge people in the way that, to be able to keep everything moving along. How's your role changed through the years?
I'm still there, putting up signs, doing all these things because I like it, and I've also someone told me about a year ago at a Royal LePage dinner downtown Toronto. There's a book you should read, Dave. It's ADHD 2.0. And I had no idea what that was about. Now I've got the book. I haven't read it because I'm doing too many other things, but I have throttled back, and I probably would have been retired by now, honestly. Um, but my kids got on board, so that kind of gave me some fresh interest. But it also allows me not to have to do things that I don't want to do, and usually they're technology things, right? Like the second podcast. So and we've gone through some iterations of MLS. Now I'm a member of the Toronto Real Estate Board now. All these things, and a lot of people my vintage, they're not doing that. So I've had enough, or they just sell out. They sell their business. So that's kept me in the game a little longer because I can rely on them to do some things that I'm not either good at or not interested in doing. Honestly, I'd rather go put up some signs than get into some other things that they're a lot better at than I am. So
Yeah, and that's where you're really good at that, and you lead by example. So the family sees what you're doing, and they see you as the leader, and you're leading by example, which I think is great. And you're doing what you love to do, and I think that's something that a lot of times we can forget about as in the business, is that, oh, I need to go do this, or I need to go do that. It's like, really look at, what do you love to do, and isn't that the purpose of life, is to enjoy what it is that you're doing. And sometimes it doesn't mean to go and scale to that next level. It's like, I love getting out and speaking with the clients. And David, I've spoken with other top professionals like yourself, that you're right at the top of the industry, and you found like a real niche that you love to do. And in this business, it's not something that you need to retire at a certain age because your body's breaking down. Like these different kinds of business, you can keep doing it. And I think that is such an important thing coming into, say, quote unquote retirement. You're at 65, I'm going to retire and do nothing. I think that is one of the biggest mistakes that people do. It's they have this, freedom 55 mindset that when I turn, whatever, 55 or 65 or whatever the age is for them, it's like, I'm going to go to the beach. But David, you
Yeah,
could probably attest to, you've probably been into the beach, for a couple of weeks and you get bored out of your mind and you realize,
it
well, what's my
doesn't even
purpose
take
now?
doesn't even take 2 weeks, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we go to Fort Myers Beach, 2 hours
Yeah.
tops. Right? It's well, especially after
Yeah.
the hurricane. But
That's
yeah,
right.
and we've got a place in Florida, right?
Yeah.
And
That's right.
so, but I do a month, and we'll go to it's not on the beach, it's on the river. But I'm a boater. It's got a marina and stuff. But my wife will stay till March. That's the difference. But the job she has, she can do from anywhere. But I'm the guy I like to go out and talk to people. We're going to get a listing. We're going to buy her. Hey, I'll go out and talk to them, and it's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, so I want to transition the talk a little bit, David. So you are a sophisticated real estate investor. You've been investing in real estate through the years, and one of the more knowledgeable guys that I know in real estate investing. And you sell real estate, helping people buy and sell homes, but then and you help investors buy real estate as well, and then you personally invest. So maybe you could share with us, why do you invest in real estate and what are some of the benefits for the listeners, why you'd recommend real estate as an investment?
Well, from my perspective, it's what I know. I remember years and years ago, I had an investment guy, and he looked at my portfolio and he says, "You've got too much real estate. You got to diversify." And I said, "Into what?" And he rattled off some stuff. And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about that." He said, "But I do." I said, "Well, that's good for you. But, how do I monitor that?" So, and not to say like we're maxed out on RSPs, we're maxed out on TFSAs and all of the RESPs when my kids were younger. We did all of that and we've got all of that. But I let someone else manage all that.
Hmm.
And I just do the real estate stuff because that's what I know. And I've done some mortgage stuff as well.
Yeah.
I've had a mortgage broker call me once and say, "Hey, Dave, I got someone who needs $100,000." And I said, "What's the address?" He told me the address. I said, "What's the loan to value? What's the assessment? What did the appraisal come in at?" And he gave me the number on the appraised value, whatever it was. And I said, "Man, there's not on a house on that street worth that kind of money. Like,
Yeah.
don't call me on that.
Yeah.
I'm not putting 100,000 on that." So, doing what you know, and this is what I know. Um, uh, we just bought a brand new house. The guy needed to get out of it, the builder, and a couple of things that he probably shouldn't have done. And we agreed on a price, and I made sure he felt comfortable that we weren't taking advantage of him. He was thrilled to sell it to us. And now I've got a brand new up and down purpose built duplex that's getting good return. The only thing annoys me is that I'm paying land transfer tax on HST. So
Mm,
I'm talking to the government about that right now because they said my lawyer didn't submit enough money. So now I know I owe interest
oh,
on the
oh,
land transfer tax on the HST.
yeah,
So yeah, so if you stick with what you know,
that's
I think that's helpful. And if you're in the real estate business, you could do mortgages. You could. I built a sixplex. Actually, that was featured in the real estate magazine as well in 2020. I built a sixplex with the general contractors on it, and I knew there was a market for that product. A lot of people who were retiring didn't want to go into an apartment building; they didn't want to go into an old folks' home.
hmm
So we custom built it for that clientele,
yeah.
and I had 6 people, super quality people, in 2 hours had it
Mm.
rented, all of them.
Yeah, and I think that's such a valid point when you're looking at real estate. Where I find the best deals come is if you can think down the road, is who's the best either resident for this or who's going to be the buyer down the road, and if you can somehow add value. So an example of that would be, maybe you buy a corner lot and then you sever it and then you put a couple of triplexes on that, right? That's where it would be sold to you for maybe a single family property, but you convert it and you add value. and then you can get a better return that way. That's how you can force appreciation. David, maybe you could share some suggestions for, maybe so it's a business owner, they're making good income and they want to invest in real estate. What advice would you give them as a real estate expert to be able to invest in real estate and to do well in it, especially in today's market?
Well, first of all, you've got to find someone you can trust, right? I got questioned on the weekend by somebody who was looking for a realtor in this area. He's got this property that he bought to convert a two-car garage into another unit. It was a small single family on a good sized lot and all that. Anyway, I went and looked at it yesterday, and it's empty and it's been trashed. And he's got a permit for that garage to be converted over to a living space. And but he didn't realize the permit's almost expired, and he paid too much money. He bought it a year ago. So I was really upfront with him, and I said, "Hey, man, you're in a world of hurt here." so, uh, and he interviewed 3 or 4 different realtors, and we still got the job
Yeah,
because he appreciated our honesty.
you're
So I
candid.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, and so you got to be someone you can comfortable with, who's going to tell you the truth, and that's what I've done all along. So first of all, as an investor, that's what you want. You want someone who you can trust,
Hmm.
you get along with, and all that sort of stuff. You both have the same goals and same mindset. So I'd start with that certainly. And then after that, it's just a matter of timing. Even when the market's dead or it's red hot, there's still deals out there, right? But
Yeah.
you have to have someone looking for you to find them.
That's really good.
And it's not always about the ROI. All the rental properties I've bought, my first thought on all of them was, is it a good location and all that sort of stuff. And I was more leaning on capital appreciation initially than ROI. So most people are looking at the return on the investment. Like we've got a property listed right now. It's on a high profile corner. It's a Service Ontario person in there with a lease. The ROI is over 9%.
Can you explain
Uh,
that to the listeners, what that means, the difference? So appreciation versus ROI, or
sure.
cash on cash returns. Maybe you can explain that for the listeners.
Yeah. So return on investment is, how much have you put into the property versus how much do you get out? What percentage are you making on your money? Am I better just to get a Canada savings bond with a lot less grief, that sort of stuff? The capital appreciation portion for me was always better because years ago I would try and get in with little money down, right? 5-10%. Now most of our stuff's paid off, but I can't convince my wife to leverage it all, and may get twice as much, of course. So, yeah, so I kind of euchred there. But anyway, so if they're looking for the capital appreciation, it's just a matter of did they buy it at the right price or below market, and where is it going to go when you want to get out of it? I want to get out of it in 5 years. Where do you think it'll go? So what's the capital appreciation? Then of course don't forget to include capital gains, right? That's another factor. A lot of people don't think about that. I just did a deal for somebody, and they put the husband passed away, real nice people, and the mother, she's 85. She put her daughter on title, but her daughter already owns a house. So I said, you better talk to your lawyer. Just make sure your daughter's not liable for capital gain on one or two of these sales. One of them anyway. So it's things like that. So you've got to find someone knowledgeable, then decide if you want capital appreciation or you want a certain percentage interest on your money every year, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's such a really good point between appreciation, capital appreciation. So that means maybe you buy a property at 500,000 and it goes up 200,000. Well, that's a capital appreciation of 200,000 there, right? And so that's really great. The challenge is if, say, interest rates double, if you didn't lock in your rates, and you might need to feed that deal. Like in David's case, he's paying his properties down, so they're making money every month. He doesn't have that exposure. But what we've seen in the past is where people try and put, maybe they're still putting down 20%, but the property isn't carrying itself when it's being rented out. And then what happens is, if you say the market goes down in value and then you have mortgage rates that end up going up, your mortgage payments start to increase, and then you're having to take money out of your pocket to keep that property going. We call it like feeding the deal. And so the appreciation game is something in a strong and up and coming market. You can be very lucrative, but when the market is coming down, you can get caught, and that's how people lose money. And that's where what David's talking about, the return on investment, or some people would call it cash flow of the property, cash on cash returns. If you can get both, that is most ideal. That's
Right.
where it's returning cash on cash or returns from day one, ideally 5% and above, and you have upside because you bought it at a discount with it appreciating. And if you can get both of them, Robert Kiyosaki talks about buy properties for cash flow. If you can do that, there's much less risk in when you're investing in real estate. Would you agree with that, David?
Absolutely. And one step further to that, the way our market is right now, and since after say the second quarter of 2022 till now, that it's probably been tougher. But if you go to the States, as you know, I think there's better opportunities there right now from what I've been looking at as well by the realtors that I know down there in Florida. So, if you can look outside, you can probably catch one of these markets in the right direction, right? Because I have seen people too who, not necessarily just investors, but they bought first quarter 2022, the absolute zenith of the market, and then at 1.9%, and now they're renewing at 5.9, 5.5, whatever, and they're already lost 200 grand just in the difference in the price. Bought in multiple offers and all that sort of stuff, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. And that was David. That was one of the main reasons why we ended up going down south, because cash flow is
Mhm.
really important for me. That a property could carry itself by the renter paying
Right.
everything, and so that's when we started buying these properties down south. And so I really learned and got to look at operators and what hurt real estate investors, and it boiled down to these three golden rules. One was cash flow. If you buy a property that cash flows as it makes more rent than the expenses, it's very resilient. The second thing is having enough in the litter. So the kitty litter, the we call them cash reserves. So if you can
Hmm.
keep some money there, ideally 6 months of principal and interest and 10% contingency on your renovation plan. If you can keep that there, it means we'll say, from a capital standpoint, if anything comes up, you have some cash in the bank, so you're not having to insert. And then the last one is, if you lock in your rates for 5 years plus, especially when you're getting into the bigger acquisitions, then you're protected. You just want to make sure then
Right.
that you manage your buildings, and that's something, David, I know you do really well. Is you
Hmm.
keep an eye on your real estate assets, and that's the same with us. Is we found the differentiating factor there is if a property is really well cared for, and you have a really strong property manager at the front line, you keep an eye on it. That's what protects the downside in a big way when you're investing in real estate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, David, now you had mentioned mortgages as well. Can you explain to the listeners how that works, investing in mortgages, and maybe some of the benefits that you've had in that?
Yeah. Years ago, I had a friend of mine. He was actually on my team at one time. He was a mortgage broker, part-time mortgage broker, and he was telling me about lending money and the returns. And honestly, I didn't get into it for a year because I thought it must be illegal. It seemed so lucrative. Uh, so I started off by doing, $10,000, $20,000 seconds. Then we would do maybe a $250,000 first mortgage. So um, if you're in the business or you have a trustworthy person that can tell you what the property is really worth, not some inflated number given to you, it might maybe some mortgage broker who's not paying attention, um, then you should be fine. So if you can get, we'll say, 14% on a second mortgage and 10 or 11 on a first mortgage, it can be a lot easier than building houses, renovating houses, you know. And some of these people are golden. Like the first one I did, I felt guilty. It was an older lady. She needed $10,000. The broker came to me and said she owns her house outright. She just needs $10,000 for some repairs. And I said, well, if she doesn't have a mortgage, what does she need my money for? Well, the bank won't give her the money because she has no job. She's retired. Yeah, and I thought, wow, that's criminal. But we ended up loaning her the money for a good rate for her, and it all worked out in the end. But that was the eye opener for me. And then there's other people who all kinds of horror stories I can tell you. But anyway, who need the money?
Tell
You just do
tell
your homework.
tell us a horror story. Is there a horror story that comes to mind that
There's lots.
yeah,
There's lots.
maybe share
I had
what's
a
like
okay.
a common
I
one
give.
before you go on.
Well, I'll give you one. So,
Yeah.
mortgage broker calls me. Got this guy, and it's like 5 minutes from my house. And anyway, he didn't need a lot of money, and he had a very small mortgage, so the money was golden, right? My money was protected. He had a small first. I was second, small second. The house was worth probably 4 times what would be owing in the two mortgages. So all good. And then all of a sudden, maybe 3 or 4 months into the 1 year term, uh, we're getting the checks, but not signed by him, signed by some lady. So the alarm bell goes off in my head, and I go over and meet the woman, and house is not great, of course, but the land and everything, it's worth what it's way more than what it's mortgaged for. And I said, "Oh, where's so and so?" "Oh, he's not around." And I said, "Oh, are you going to keep paying the mortgage money because you're not on title? I'm wondering why you want to do that."
Yeah.
"Well, I feel bad for him." I said, "Well, why is that?" "Well, he's in jail." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, no renewal on that mortgage."
Yeah, you have some insider information on that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank God I went and knocked on the door.
Yeah. Well, and there you go. I mean, life happens, right? And so,
Hmm.
it's interesting because even with the elderly lady that needed some money, she paid off her house. You're providing a service, right, to them,
Right.
and you have collateral. If payments stop happening, you can go in and to go power sale and take it, or to be able to get your funds back. Now, here's the question: when you're comparing mortgages to real estate investing,
Hmm.
what would you say would be kind of the return differences between the two, and
Right.
maybe the pros and cons to both?
Well, the mortgages is a short-term thing, right? We never write them for more than a year. So that way you can opt out if things aren't going the way you want. And I discovered later some of the mortgage brokers don't want to write them for more than a year because they want to re-up those people and charge them another mortgage fee, and the lawyer charges another title search fee or whatever there. So, an example of that $10,000, and I don't know what the exact details were on that lady, but a $10,000 mortgage, they may only actually see $7,500 in their hand after they pay everybody, right? Yeah. So as someone lending money, you can tie it to whatever term you want. The interest rate. You should get paid if you do your homework. There should be no loss due to the property not being worth what everybody thought it was worth. And it's pretty. Once it's set up, it's pretty straightforward. Not a lot of labor. You're not managing tenants, right? Not going through that, which can be grief. Not for me because I screen people big time, but it can be a lot simpler. But there's no capital appreciation like there is with buying property, right? So if you buy a house or an apartment properly at the right price, then you shouldn't lose. Sometimes you can't help it because the market goes down. Nothing you can do about that. Hopefully, you don't have to sell when the market's down. So on the mortgage side, you know what the interest rate should be. The income on the property probably isn't going to be 14 or 15% on a single family home investment. But I used to do the buyer seminars on the military base here. And I used to say to people, if you buy a house for $100,000 with 5% down, what's the return on your investment? And people would say it's 5%.
Yeah.
I said, no, it's 100%.
Yeah.
You put 5 grand in, you made 5 grand, you made 100% on your money,
Yeah.
and it's tax free.
Leverage. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the
I,
advantage
I
too
just I
of
want
that.
to I just want to really underline how powerful this leverage
Mm-hmm.
tactic is that David's saying here. This is one of the main reasons why real estate has made more millionaires than any other asset class. If you put
Right.
down, David used the example of 5% down. If it goes up 5%, say you bought a property for 100,000 to make it easy, you put $5,000. Not that you can ever find a property for
Right.
100,000. I'm just making it as so.
Easy math.
We'll say a million just to make
Yep.
it into. You buy property for a million. You actually only need to put down $50,000, 5%, and the property goes up from a million to a million 50. Well, your 50,000 just got doubled. And so even if you put down 20%, a lot of, second properties, you need to put 20% down. That $1 million, if it goes up 5%, well, that $1 million, 1,050,000. Well, if you only put down 200,000, a little bit extra, that's still a 25% return, not a 5% return. So leverage is such a powerful thing for maximizing your return. So I don't mean to interrupt you there, David. I just wanted to
No,
really underline why real estate has made more millionaires than anything else.
absolutely. And it's easy math when someone explains it to you, right? But some people just don't think about it. And that's why I used to use the $100,000 when I did my home buyer seminar, because a lot of those people were renting, right? They say, and you at that time you could probably get a house here for 150,000. So yeah, what, have you got 7,500 bucks? Yeah, okay, well, I can get you 100% on your money. It's yeah, and tax free.
Well, that's so you got mortgages as an option, and then you got the real estate investing side of it. Where do you think the opportunity is for the listeners out there to in today's market? So the market's now dropped about 25%, depending give or take, depending where you're at. Do you think that now is a good time to be buying real estate? And what kind of real estate do you think is maybe a good opportunity in today's market?
Well, I've got the vibe really that we're ready to just come jump off the bottom here, right? Um, I'm a news junkie, so I'm reading all kinds of stuff every day, and that seems to be the general consensus. I think we are going to come off the bottom, at least in my market, and I can feel it already. Whether it's doing open houses, I do a lot of new construction as well. A lot of people are inquiring now because they know there may be one little uh, interest rate drop again before the end of the year, and it's just like when the first 0.25 from the Bank of Canada happened in June. I really thought, oh, this is it, man. Like finally we're going to turn this corner. Well, zero, zero change. And then another quarter, then a half. Got to be something. No. But now I think finally it's sunk in. And I'm telling everybody, like, if you get in now, you're getting a low price because the market's super soft and the interest rates are there for you, right? So just get a long closing date, hope for another reduction, and you're rocking because I think the spring market in Southern Ontario is going to be pulled forward, you know, because the military business we do, it kicks off earlier than Southern Ontario because the guys know they're transferred, they're getting these posting messages, so they're inquiring about, hey, can you come over and look at my house in January or February, right? Because they're gone in June or July, but they got to sell maybe in March or April, right? So ours kicks off a little quicker. So I think we're going to see that pulled forward so that the spring market's even earlier. So I think we're in a good spot right now if someone's looking to buy.
Yeah. And what kind of real estate would you recommend? Say somebody's thinking about getting a second property. Where do you think there's opportunity now?
In my market, if I did commercial only, I would starve to death because we're a small market, right? So I do some commercial stuff, but primarily I think um, townhouses.
Hmm.
Like the difference between a rental on a townhouse versus single family, the rent difference maybe $400 a month,
Yeah.
but the purchase price could be 50% more to go
Yeah.
from a townhouse to a single family.
Yeah.
And then multifamily, like that sixplex. Um, I think that was assessed at 1.25 when I built it. Um, I don't know what it'd be worth now, but I think we're really going at about maybe $200,000 a door. You know,
Yeah. Right on.
so
So,
I think small multifamily and single family. I
mhm.
think in my market is where to go.
Yeah,
So
which is Trenton, it's east of Toronto. So,
right.
this market is, what would you say your average sale price is there?
Well, it's really interesting. Like there's an area south of it where I work also called Prince Edward County, Picton.
Yep.
What do they call that? Niagara East. new wine country. So the average, believe it or not, and it's mostly farm country, but still, the average sale price there is almost 600,000.
Mm,
Then you come to a place like Trenton or Belleville, it's low fives,
yeah.
for a single family.
Got it. So a little more affordable. So what David said there, I totally agree, and that's what we're telling our clients as well. David, is that we saw a number of price hikes, and now we're starting to see them reduce this year. And one of the reasons is the Bank of Canada. They're seeing that the Canadian economy like we're a lot of business owners are getting hurt right now. And so we're seeing delinquencies going up, and we're seeing like the overall market slowing down. So they want to basically turn the corner, so to speak. And so we started seeing price reductions, and they're expecting another half point reduction by the end of the year as well. So what David's saying is, you go in and buy a property now with maybe a longer closing. Maybe don't lock in your rate because they're likely going to come down, and you're basically you're buying at rock bottom pricing. And so that's what we're seeing in our market in Barrie, so just north of Toronto. But we're also seeing this as well down in the U.S., where we're buying these larger multifamily properties as well. We've seen these prices come down 25, and we're getting these 25 to 30% discounts now. And David, so isn't it interesting that buyers get excited and they start buying after the market jumps up 20,
Yeah,
30%? And when the
that's right.
market drops 25, 30% down, then it's not sexy. Their friends and family are telling them not to buy real estate because they knew a lot of people that got hurt. But
Yeah.
that's the time that you should be buying,
I
when the
know, and
market
I see, yeah.
drops, right?
And how many times have we seen that? Lots. They
Yeah.
ride the wave, and yeah, it's people are always behind the power curve, right? So you try to say to them, hey, like I did an open house yesterday. I did an open house, and this place 699, 1,500 square feet, finished all brick, 5 years old, fully finished basement. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, two-car garage, great neighborhood.
Yeah.
699, and I had a guy come in. Well, the market's not that great. Yada yada yada. They may have to take less. I said, you know what? You can't buy this house with an unfinished basement with all brick in this neighborhood for less than 800,000.
Yeah.
But some people just they don't get it. Right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
but if I wanted another house, I would have bought that house myself.
Yeah.
But it's only a single. There's no multi unit component.
Yeah.
So, but you're absolutely right. That people just don't get it. It has to go past the bottom before people say, "Oh, I better get in." I
Yeah.
said, "Man, if
That's
you got in
right.
2 months ago, you'd already be up 20 grand." Like, so
Yeah, all the data right now is telling us that we've hit the bottom, and this is when you want to be buying. It takes courage though to do it in a market like this. And that's where having a trusted expert taking you by your hand and giving you confidence that you're doing the right thing, it means a lot, especially in today's market, because there's a lot of uncertainty out there now. There's the news that is always, speaking a lot of negative, and it's hard to know what the truth is. We're telling you, two top professionals in the marketplace, the data is telling us that, and we're seeing out there in the market that the market is about to turn, and this is a wonderful time to buy real estate. Like, double down on real estate now.
exactly.
David, this has been great so far. Are you ready for the lightning round?
You bet.
All right.
Shoot the puck.
So we got
Shoot the
three.
puck.
Yeah, I got three questions here for you. Starting with, what book has made the biggest impact in your business or wealth building, we'll say, trajectory?
Oh wow, I haven't read a book about that in a while, but probably anything done by Gary Keller, Millionaire Real Estate. It was like super detailed, man. Uh, and if I had got that day one out of the box, I thought, geez, that could be worth even more money because the detail is phenomenal in that book. If you could follow it, right?
Millionaire Real Estate Agent is one of those
Yeah,
classic books. If you're getting into real estate, 1,000%. And Gary Keller wrote another really good book called The One Thing, and just really smart guy in the industry. So
yeah.
I totally recommend that as well.
Mm.
Second question here, David. What three words would people describe you as if they were to say, David is this, this, and this?
Oh wow. Wow. Um, driven, relentless, and the third one wouldn't fit, but compassionate. The
Yeah.
family dynamic I had growing up. I had two sisters. My grandmother kind of raised the three of us. Um, yeah, so we got a lot of compassion for that. Women's Shelter Foundation. I'm sure you're familiar with that. We're big supporters of that kind of thing. So
Yeah, giving back. Yeah, and
yep,
empathy, I think that's something you definitely have.
yeah,
It's a real mix there to be able to be a strong driver and to know your craft really well and your business really well, but then to be able to truly listen to your clients and be able to tie them together. That's one of the key strengths that I've seen with top producers in any business, but specifically in real estate. And you definitely have that, David. Last question for you is, what advice would you give your younger self?
oh man. Well, my mother used to say to me, "Don't forget to smell the roses along the way,"
Mm,
and that was something. Uh, Probably at the end of my air traffic control career, I would just go, 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 work, 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 and didn't throttle back with the work so much. Now, this is a different kind of job, this profession we're in. So you can, like, I just spent 10 days in Hawaii with my sisters and my family here. So that was something years ago I would have never done. So, yeah, you got to take some time for you and your family.
I love that. And
Yeah.
that's so well said, David, because I mean, like my oldest son, he's 16 now. And I realize, holy smokes, like time is going by quick.
Flying, man, flying.
And
Yeah.
and so that's so good. It's like enjoy what it is that you're doing along the way and just like slow down and celebrate the wins. I love
Yep.
that advice to smell the roses,
Mm.
smell the kind of roses along the way. So
Yeah.
anything else you want to put out there? Anything else you want to say? I know you're big in the charity as well. So is there anything kind of last remarks or
Well, yeah, no, we're big supporters of the women's shelter locally here in Belleville for kids and women that are abused, and we're a big supporter of our food bank here. We do go around three different subdivisions every uh, family day, and we collect around 2,800 pounds of food and well, it's $1,500 cash. We've been doing that for a number of years, and it's great. And it's great in that you see the other side. Sometimes they say, "Oh, I've forgotten about it." There's a lot of families out here who need some help, right? And you don't see that every day, but that forces you to go into that food bank and say, "Oh, wow, look at these people; they all need help," right?
David, interesting fact that we're big supporters of the food bank in our local market as well. And one of the things that's interesting that I think a lot of people don't know that will really drive the point on how important it is to support your local food bank is that I was speaking with the president and she was telling me that usage is up like 3 times now.
Yep, exactly. It's been tough. Been really tough the last couple of years.
And so the we'll just say there's a lot of people out there now that are hurting in Canada, and I think if you have an opportunity to give to the food bank, they're in real need, like 3 times X usage right now.
Yep,
So
a lot of
definitely,
kids. A
yeah, a
lot of
lot of
kids there.
kids, right?
Yeah,
And that's heartbreaking, right? Because when we grew up, there was, I grew up on a farm. There's always food there.
food.
You never think
Yeah,
that's a problem, but a lot of these kids, I mean, and just malnourished, and they're just kind of just getting the bare essentials, and a lot of times they're not even getting that,
right.
right, and they're going short. So definitely want to recommend to go to your local food bank and take David's lead here and follow through on that. I think that's a big thing. So
Mm.
David, it was a real pleasure interviewing you and getting your key insights. And congrats on all your success. And if you do want to reach out to David, he serves the Belleville, Trenton, Ontario market, and really real strong high producer. If you're looking to buy or sell in that market anywhere around that location, definitely reach out to David. And we'll make sure that you have his contact information down below. And just remember, guys, the fastest way to wealth is to build your business and invest in real estate. I love you guys.